one of the things that we're going to do today is look at your clicking pointage. And yes, I did update everything yesterday. I finally got some time to do that. And so what I'm going to do is now trot you through the fairly complicated procedure for figuring out your clicking percentage, your clicking pointage for participation, the part that goes into your semester grade. Now, I have been posting your data, how many answers that you send, how many of the answers are correct, but now we're going to put it all together into semester grade. So basically, you're supposed to get 25 out of 25. The principle is if you have 85% of the questions answered, you get 25 points no matter what. That's the threshold. If you have less than 85%, then we have to do it proportionally, and it's a little bit trickier, and that's what we're going to do today. So what I want to show you today is basically how to calculate your clicker percentage and try to do it in a little bit better method than KIP. I don't know about that guy. Anyways, so on your home page in web courses, hopefully in the last 12 hours or so, you've noticed that there is a little blue blob indicating you have a bunch of new grades. You've probably seen that a million times before. Your grades page looks like this. This is my phony student demo account. It doesn't work nearly as nicely, and it doesn't work identically the way yours does. So, but for this part, it should be fairly clear. Now, this is the top of the page. If you go down the page, you'll see the different lectures with a bunch of numbers, and each lecture, lecture 5 being the first lecture that we used official clicking activity, you'll see two numbers, one for answers, that tells you how many you answered, and one for correct, that tells you how many of the ones that you answered correctly. And I keep track of both of them. Your participation pointage that goes into your semester grade, 25 out of 25 or less, comes from how many you answer. So what you want to do is look at this for your page, your L5 answers. Your L7. Now you guys are in section 1, so this is a couple of the lectures have different numbers, so they're bifurcated. If it says L8.1, that's you guys. If it says L8.2, that's the afternoon class. L8.1. All right, skip over that one because that's afternoon. To L15. Now this is what we've got so far. Today's lecture 16. And by the way, students, we're about halfway through the semester now. Tuesday next week is halfway, I think. So add all those numbers up. Now, here's, for this particular test student, for my phony demo account, I put numbers in there, and I deliberately put in numbers that would give him less than 85%. So you can jot these down if you want quickly. Lecture 5, 1. Lecture 6, 1. Lecture 7, 1. Lecture 8.1, 3. Lecture 9, 2. Lecture 12.3. Lecture 13, 6. Lecture 14, 2. Lecture 15, 4. All right, and also the grades page will tell you out of how many. Say your score out of, so like for number 15 here, lecture 15, L15, that's 4 out of 7, and you'll be able to see that on the page. Here's an example for the same student with the afternoon numbers. So this one's scored 22 out of 28 possible. Don't worry about these numbers because we're going to do the morning example. But basically, here's where we are. The two sections are not identical for the number of questions. There are 3 fewer in the afternoon section. That's just happenstance. Sometimes I don't get to all the questions I want. But they're pretty close. And right now, the second level of numbers here is what you want to focus on. For section 1, we've had 31 questions so far in 9 official participation lectures. Now, there's a couple lectures I think that we haven't had any clicking, and of course on the exam, the clicking doesn't go into class participation, it goes into your exam score. But we've had 9 official lectures, and then we had 3 lectures at the beginning of the semester, total of 16. So 31 answers possible. If you have 27 or more answers on the books, when you add all the way up from L5 down to L15 for you, then you've hit 85%, and you are if I was going to give grades today, you'd have 25 out of 25. Now for section 2, slightly different number, just 24 out of 28, and then they get 25 out of 25. Okay, so this is where you want to be. And I looked at the numbers. I calculated everybody's pointage actually last night. I didn't put it on web courses, but I know what it is. You can calculate it whenever you feel like it. And when I looked at everybody's pointage as if this were the end of the semester and I was giving you those 25 out of 25 going into finals week or fewer, I found that 71% of this class has 23 points out of 25 or higher. And 64%, I think, in this class and 66 in the afternoon class actually has 25 out of 25. So almost a huge number of you are doing just great. Another thing I want to point out to you that have come up to me, I didn't have my clicker today, but here I wrote my answers down on paper, and I say, no, you've got leeway. You've heard me say that a million times. You've got leeway to burn 1 or 2 lectures. And you can see that here. I've asked 31 questions. If you skip 1 lecture, like 4 questions or 3 questions, you're still good. And you answer everything else. All right? So if if you're going to the dentist or you're going down for Rosh Hashanah or something, and you have to miss lecture, it's not a great disaster. Now this is halfway, so you've got about 2 lectures to burn maybe. Now try not to burn one like Tuesday in which you have 7 questions. That was a bad one. If you missed lecture on Tuesday, you're going to be below, even if you were there for everything else. But many of you also have some bonus points from early iClicker registration. So that's going to patch up. If you lose a little bit because you missed a big 7-point lecture and you're down to 24 out of 25 by the end of the semester, if you've got a couple bonus points, that brings you right back up. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I have bonus points. And there'll be other opportunities to earn some bonus points. Now, I want to trot you through the actual calculation. All right, so let's go ahead and take notes very carefully. And the more careful you can take notes and then review the video and make sure your notes are accurate, the better it will be for you in 5 weeks or 6 weeks when you're trying to figure out, hey, what have I got going into the final? Because end of November, this is the middle of, gosh, it's been a fast semester. We're about halfway through because end of end of November, early December. That's it. And then finals week. So what you do is you look in your grades page and you add up the answers. And then you figure out the total possible. So right now for this class it's 31. Okay? And so you got to calculate 85% of that, and then you've got to have a whole number above that percentage. So for this class, it's 27 right now. Now later in the semester, the total possible is going to be different. And just do this again. You look on your grades page, count up all the points possible, count up all the answers you have sent, and figure out your 85% number and proceed. Now, as I mentioned, if your answers are above 85%, bing, you have 25 out of 25. No calculation necessary. No further calculation necessary, I should say. But if you're below 85%, that's when it gets a little bit nervy-dervy. So let's just trot through this step by step, and we'll just work together. 50-50. All right? I'll tell you what. Let's do it. So the first thing you do is calculate your percentage. So for the first period student, that would be 23 out of 31. And that works out to 74.2% or 0.742. All right? Now that's your first step. Okay? Now everybody should do that, and if you come in 0.85 or more, you're done. But if you're below 0.85, here's what you do next. Okay? Divide that by 0.85, the leeway factor. All right? So that's this. So you take your percentage and divide by 0.85. And in this case, in this example, 0.742 divided by 0.85. All right? But you're not done yet, because we have to convert this into some portion of 25 points. So now what you do, the third step, is you multiply the result of that division. So you calculate this number, and then before you do anything else, multiply that by 25. Okay, so basically what you're doing is solving this proportion. So write this proportion down. All right? This is the proportion we are working. All right? And part A goes into the numerator here. Part B is this quotient on the left side. And then your points over here, this is what you're trying to get. That's what you got. So if you're pretty good at proportions, just crank away. And you figure out what your points are. And also, as a benefit to mankind, I always round up. So if you have 22.1, I always give you 23 points. Always round. If you have 22.9, I give you 23 points. All right. So, and that's just just to make things a little bit nicer and a little bit easier to work with. So now let me pause for questions, because I'm going to ask you how to do this using the iClicker. You're going to do this calculation. Questions? And make sure you have all these numbers jotted down in your book, your notebook. Okay, I don't see any questions. Let's keep going. So what I want to ask you now is a calculation of how many points. So there's your proportion, and let me start the question. Okay, and just take it and double check with your neighbor to make sure you're. So this guy's got 74.2%. I have 20 something, I guess. but he won't have 25. And I want a whole number, so don't forget to round up. Perfect lighting is the other room at the other end of the hall, 201. Those panels are in room 201. They have windows, perfect daylight. You can turn off all the lights. Everything's everything's perfect. This one's a little bright. 30 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, 289 students. And let's see what you guys voted for. Yeah, 90% of you. All right, let's take a look at these numbers. It's indicative. Correct answer is 22. 90% of you voted for 22. You guys that got 23, you're a little bit high. Those of you that wrote in 21, you didn't round right. Those of you who wrote in 21.8, you didn't round at all. Round up. All right. And so just remember to do it that way. Now, I don't want, you guys did pretty good, so I'm glad about that. And so I don't want you to ever, feel like I won't do this, but I do want you to try to do this. You could do it every week, As soon as I update the data in web courses, you can figure it out. So try to, and in general, this is the proportion that you should use. Your percentage divided by 0.85 equals your points divided by 25. That's the main. And you could basically execute that. And if you ever feel like you're a little nervous, Dr. B, I'm not sure I did this right. You could double check with me. Like in office hours or something. All right. Now let me pause for questions. Yes, Rasil. Good. Thank you for asking that. Rasil asked me up here in the front row, are you going to cover how I use the number of correct answers? Because I keep track of the number of correct answers. The answer to that is fairly simple. At the end of the semester, I count up how many you, and if you have 75% or more correct, I give you 4 bonus points. Okay. And so that's like getting a B on clicking, for correctness. But for participation, this is the way that you do it. Okay, so the bonus point activity is pretty basic. Just straight 75%. This is the tricky one. Okay. Another question? Okay, let's keep going. Last time we were talking about a basketball 0.620 kilograms of mass, and you had a slightly different basketball, 0.600 kilograms, on homework. And the brain burner at the end of the homework was calculating the speeds. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get that speed, and we're going to do it on the document cam. And the way that we're going to do this is I'll keep recording, and then I'll make a scan of what I write on the document cam, and I'll embed that in the video before I render the video from Keynote. And then you guys will be able to view it on the video, and I'll also post it as a PDF inside web courses, and you'll be able to print it out just like as if you were printing it out from my notebook here. So let's go to the document cam. I'll keep the podcast rolling. Hopefully this won't mess things up too badly. All right. Let's work on, and keep your clickers handy because we're going to try to calculations. We had a 0.60 kilogram basketball. The weight force for that was 5.88 newtons downward. The delta KE, so it's basically works out to negative 5.88 newtons. That's F parallel times whatever my delta Y is. So you can always figure out what the change in the kinetic energy is. Now, this particular problem, I gave you basically 3 altitudes to think about. E in the 4th column. All right, now if you want to work it out this way using a table, it's a method. You don't have to use this method. The calculations that we're going to do right now are, you just do them on pencil and paper. And my energy. Now, the setup for the problem was it started at the apogee, or the top of its arc. It was in a straight up, straight down arc. And so that means that at 3.5 meters elevation, kinetic energy is 0.00 joules. So that's your start. GPE. Opposite of this. Particular case, positive 5.88 newtons. That's mg positive. Y. 4 to equals 0. And so the GPE here, actually it's right here in my pocket. Can you see that? Let's see. Let me turn it on. Okay, let me clear it. Let me see if I turn this on here. Okay, so let's go 5.88 times 2.5. And that's 14.7. Is that right? Oh, okay, we'll remember that for the next part. So we want 5.88 times 3.5. 20.58. Is that right? Okay. Listen to me. I'm the teacher, and I'm asking you guys if it's right. And you're replying. That means... Okay, now I want you to watch what I'm about to do. Because if you have a table, you can use the table now to make some sweeping motions. It's like being in battle. You know, you bring all your tanks and just charge them through like the cavalry. Okay, here comes the cavalry. Once you have these two numbers, ding, you have this one. It's the sum of those two. Once you have this one, in fact, once you have anything on this fourth column, you got them all the way down. 20.58. 20.58. Or, as I was working with some students yesterday, ditto marks. Okay, now, at ground level, GPE is what? 0. Because delta Y is 0 down here. So I'll put 0, 0. Because delta Y is 0 down here relative to the floor. Okay? Therefore, one more bold sweeping cavalry maneuver. You can write 20.58 here. All right? So now we've got most of our chessboard filled. We are almost squared away. Now, I think the homework was to ask you what's the kinetic energy at 2.5? And then what's the speed at 2.5? Okay, so let's figure this out. All right, now we actually remember that? And hey, you guys, you notice anything interesting about that? 5.88. It's the weight force. If you know the weight force, that basically tells you how many newtons you get in 1 meter of drop distance. And 2.5 is 1 meter down. All right, so we're good on that. So here's your kinetic energy, 5.88 joules. And I believe that was the answer for one of the questions, correct? Okay, question. No, I might ask you to do it all the way. Just to make sure you're ready for Homework 13 this weekend, because I got a brain burner ready for you. It's been nice knowing you, because your brain is going to be fried. Okay, question. Here? Is these, once I fill in this column, these two numbers always have to add up to 20.58. So if I know one of them is 0, ding, automatically this has got to be 20.58. Now, if I'm in between, I got to subtract. I figure GP delta Y here, or what is GPE or mg delta Y, and then subtract, which is what I did here. So sometimes you get them easy. E is always the same. The total mechanical energy is always the same. So put a little star up here for this column, This is the one that's conserved. It doesn't matter where you start. If I tell you some intermediate distance or some intermediate height, you can figure out, basically you can figure out how high it's going to go by using, by reversing the arrows. In other words, if I tell you at some intermediate height like 2.6 and nothing else, if I give you kinetic and potential, then you go to the right and then you go up and you go down in the fourth column and you just, and then you just work from there. Okay. All right. Now, how do you figure out the speed? Speed. Speed, speed, speed. So if I know the kinetic energy, I can kind of backtrack and get v squared, and then hit the square root button and get v. So let's do that. Move this up a little bit. So let me set this up, 5.88. And hey, you guys, I'm going to write a joule as kilogram meters squared per second squared. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to do some cancelizations. I'm trying to figure out v squared. And then when I get v squared, then I hit my square root key and I'll have v. Okay, now I want you to look at this. I wrote this. Now this is a joule. These are written joule. Sometimes okay. Sometimes Newton meters is good. Sometimes kilogram meter squared per second squared is good, and that's what we're going to use here. Okay. And put my 1/2 and my 0.6 together. Kilograms left because those are canceled. All right. All right. Now, for those of you that have had calculus and trig, here. All right. The right side. Now let me go to the calculator actually. It's 2 times G. Using a nice problem. Anyway, there's V squared. And notice, you guys, that my units over here on the left are the square. So that's good. Now all I have to do to get V is hit my square root key. So let me go up here. Calculator, and let's see, seconds, and then this, and then second, and then this. Okay, 4.43 is my down meters per second. And I had a bunch of students messaging me in sections. You know, they just didn't have time to get in there, and our TA is not activated, and Darian's deactivated. So I know a lot of you guys were brainstorming how to do this. This is how you do it. And homework 13, I'm going to give you a brain-burning another brain-burning set of a basketball. So, well, maybe I'll give you a basketball, a variation of this. Now, let me pause for questions before we go back to the regular podcast. So you guys are experts then, I guess. No questions. You ready for anything? Good. Hear it. Nice. Fine. Perfect. Nice. Now, I have this program to accept a second DocCamp page, but we're not going to use, we're just going to have one. And what we're going to do now, since you guys are experts, I'm signing up all of you to work for NASA. And we're going to drop a hammer on the moon, as the Apollo astronauts did. And you're going to click in your answer and see if you really got what it takes. Yes, you do. I see somebody up here in the second row. No, I don't. No, not me. Yeah, I'll just call them up in Houston after lunch. They'll be up here for a little mini job fair next week. All right, the moon. The acceleration due to gravity at the surface of the moon, the surface gravity, is weaker, negative 1.62 meters per second squared. By the way, if you want to look up any data on the planets, all you got to do is type in planetary fact sheet in Google, and probably the first thing that you'll come up with is NASA's planetary data sheet. And they got everything: the radius, the mass, surface gravity, orbital period. And if you look at that planetary data sheet, you'll see that the mass of the moon is 1%, 0.0123 times the mass of Earth. So it's way less mass, and its radius is pretty small. It's 27.25% of the radius of Earth. So that's why it's weaker. Okay? And now, if it was really a lot smaller than this, it might actually have really strong gravity. But normally, a planet or a moon formed of rock is going to be pretty close to this. And if you go to Mars, Mars has got weaker gravity, but it's a little bit stronger than the moon, a little bit weaker than Earth. And I can't remember what Venus is, but it's right in the same ballpark. Mercury as well. So the terrestrial planets, the first four planets, are very similar in their surface gravities. And the moon is not too far off either. The hammer. Here is thy hammer. Mighty astronaut, take thy hammer and drop it. Mass is 0.703. So, you might think, whoa, Dr. B, this is a NASA hammer. No, I looked this up on Granger.com. Granger. It's the weight of it, 1.55 pounds. Anyway, hit your refresh key. And using the numbers that I hope you just wrote down in your notes. Two numbers, one for the moon and one for Earth. I want you to try, so hit the refresh key and try the next question. Basic, basic, basic. So you got to know this in order to, your and stuff. So hopefully this is getting really boring. In other words, your genius is out. And if you're a genius at something, stuff like this is boring. Oh boy, I don't like hearing that. That sounds bad. You know what you should do? Get some chicken soup and put a little ginger in it. That's what my wife does. She makes, man, putting ginger in just about anything is the best. Except don't eat raw ginger because it like totally burns your mouth out. It's really spicy. Okay, 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. I see somebody over here on the right, on the your left side of the room, just kind of stretching and yawning, indicating it's boring. Which I hope it is, because a student was asking me the other day, Dr. B, are we still going to be doing all that stuff from the first test? Yeah. We'll be doing F equals MA till the cows come home. And since we don't have any here at UCF, that's a long time. All right, so here's what we got. 90% of you, 89% voted for 1.14 negative. That is the correct answer. Most of you got it right. Oh, look at this. 6.89. Juke. I juked, let's see how many. I juked 28 students in here. 6.89. That's the wait for it on Earth. All right, so if you voted for that, I caught you napping. Don't let me catch you napping on the midterm exam. And in order to prevent you from napping, you hit the refresh key again. And you know what that means. We got a calculation coming. Here it is. Can you do it? Take your time. The astronaut drops the hammer from a small platform on the lunar module, the LEM, from a height of 2.2 meters above the surface. What is its kinetic energy halfway down? Alright, so here's the table if you want, like we just did a few minutes ago. See if you guys are really the geniuses you claim to be. Whoa. I see some negatives of the right answer. The right answer is pulling ahead. The negative of the right answer is and I'm very happy to see everybody interacting. I see one student in the middle here. She's got a calculator and a clicker. She's going like this. Ambidextrous. Sweet. The things you see. Very nice. Let me give you guys some light on the subject. Shy. You're going to be seeing this. Did you see the homework last night when I got it set? Or Tuesday night? Is that working out good for you, the way I've set it up for you? And you got permanent access to it till this, so that's going to be nice. You can always go back and double check and stuff. What major are you in? What major are you in? Communications. One minute. Oh boy. I do love it. Correct answer. See, you guys did great. Over half of you got it correct. Negative. Uh, and I see a 1.24 and a 1.26. About 16 people. So you guys are doing you're barking up the right tree. Now, this is not a scheduled question, but I'm going to ask you one more. Questione number 5. Oh, wait a minute. We got a question in the back. Go ahead. What? Explain it. 0.7 times 1.62 times 1.1. The drop to mg delta y. And it's negative 1.62. The delta y is negative 1.1. Okay. Last question relating to the moon. Numeric answer. What is the speed? The downward speed. So give me a positive number. 2 decimal points. So something point something something. For the hammer at 1.1 meters above the surface. What is the speed? I was going to ask you, but you guys are doing really well. Hack this one out. The right answer is going ahead. Nice. Keep going, you guys. Let me give you some light. Yeah, 2 decimal points, meters per second, something point something something. Yeah. I didn't ask for you. I did not ask for you to come up. I was just smiling at you. Okay. Yay. 60% correct. 52% correct. Maybe it's up. Places. So 7 point something something meters per second. These are good. 2 decimal points. Something point, something, something. All right, let's see what we got here. All right. $74% of you got it right. That is lovely. You guys feel like dismissing early? Okay, homework 13 available by lunchtime Friday. Momentum and pressure. You're just 10 minutes.